Welcome, fans, to another edition of the Cheap Heat Productions Pro Wrestling Podcast. My name is Jack Kilby. I am the Executive Vice President of Great North Wrestling, and I'm pleased today to welcome a man who is known as the First Nation sensation, a man who has had an extensive career in the pro wrestling business and a lot of very interesting experiences, Mr. Wavell Star. Wavell, how are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing well, Jack. How are you doing tonight, my man?
Tremendous. But before we get into the questions that I have prepared, I was wondering if you're a proud First Nations man. I was wondering if you could let the fans know that may not be aware of your geographic proximity and what nation you represent.
Sure. I am in Saskatchewan here in the heart of Treaty 4 territory. I come from a band called the Star Blanket First Nation, located, I guess, sort of near Yorkton, Saskatchewan. And my mother is from the Whitecap Dakota First Nation, which is just outside of Saskatoon, which is famous for the Dakota Dunes Casino. So half Cree and half Dakota Sioux.
That's tremendous. Now, given that you're from that geographic territory, I can make an assumption that you were a fan of pro wrestling growing up, given the strong tradition that Stampede had back in the relative time frame. Could you let us know what your influences were growing up, and if indeed you followed territories or companies?
Yeah, you hit the nail right on the head there when you said about Stampede Wrestling, because here in Western Canada, in Saskatchewan, in Regina, Stampede Wrestling is really part of the local culture. So I absolutely grew up watching Stampede Wrestling, and I fell in love with it when I went to the local arena here at the Regina Exhibition Auditorium with my grandma and my grandpa and we and a few of my cousins, and we head down there and we checked out the Stampede Wrestling card at the old exhibition auditorium. And I tell you, the atmosphere, if you've never seen the exhibition auditorium, is really, really close to the Victoria Pavilion in Calgary, and it just had that perfect atmosphere for professional wrestling. And just being in that building, even just thinking about it right now, I get kind of goosebumps thinking about the type of emotions that venue actually makes me feel, so definitely grew up on Stampede Wrestling when at Christmases and Easter and family gatherings, people would gather at our place, and I would have the Stampede Wrestling and the WWF Saturday night's main event recorded on the VHS, and be sitting right beside grandma and grandpa, and we'd be watching them over and over again. And I really did watch wrestling all week. Like we recorded on Saturday on Stampede Wrestling because I was likely out playing hockey or something like that growing up as a boy in Saskatchewan. But always watched it every single day. And then, of course, huge in my career was being a family and all of the early stars of Stampede Wrestling, getting to watch them sort of make their journey in the world of professional wrestling as they advanced, as well as getting to know a lot of those old characters that I used to watch on TV, getting to know them more as colleagues and as professional mentors as I got into my career in professional wrestling.
Yeah, that's awesome. Did you have any particular? I mean, growing up, did you have any particular Stampede personalities that influenced you? I,
Oh,
I
yes.
know I know Stampede was very well appointed with even up in the latter years with heels such as Bad News Allen,
Yes.
Gama Singh, Maka
Cuban.
Singh, and Steve DeSalvo, Cuban
Yeah.
Assassin. Sorry, I'll give you an opportunity to answer that yourself.
Yeah. So sure. A lot of those old superstars from back then. Sorry, I don't mean to call them old, but I'm old. So I'm 50 years old now, so I consider them older than me. They're senior. But growing up watching those performers, it was really something else to get to know them after. And one of the biggest ironies that I found out as I grew older and got into the world of professional wrestling is that sometimes a lot of the heels in the ring were actually some of the biggest gentlemen and real life baby faces outside of the ring. And to come up with an example, I think back to the Stampede Wrestling days when we'd be on the road our agent would be the Cuban assassin. After the shows, he would make sure that we were all fed. In fact, he would get in the kitchen and feed us. Like he'd make stir fry and telling us stories about how it used to be, and it's great. He would sit shotgun in the van, and it was just awesome getting to know those folks and learning a little bit more of them as I got older and into the business.
In terms of your training, I read that you trained under Bruce and Keith.
Yes.
How would you characterize that experience, considering what a solid foundation for training it would be from the Hearts?
I loved going. I love that I'm trained by the Hearts. I loved going to the sessions. I didn't love the training. I'll tell you that the training was tough because I knew how to bump and I didn't really know how to work that much when I went there, but I kind of learned how to bump. But the workouts, what I remember about the workouts is that Bruce would always get you to that point of getting blown up, and it's not like you could increase your cardiovascular conditioning and you won't blow up, because he watches you, and as it so he as soon as he finds you, he takes you to that point where you're blown up. So it's not like you can pace yourself and save it, because he'll just keep pushing you in the drills until you're blown right up. And that's what I do remember about those, is that very, very hard on conditioning, and also the sessions running on that old treadmill. Those used to be really, really tough. So as far as conditioning goes, I grew up playing hockey and football, all sorts of sports here in Saskatchewan. So I'm no stranger to tough practices. But as far as really gut wrenching conditioning activities, it was second to none right there in the dungeon. Having said that, when you have a passion and you really want to be there, then it's bearable. And at the end of of the sessions, I remember I used to spend time going through the programs. Stu used to have boxes of old Stampede Wrestling programs in the basement, and I would go through those. And I guess more importantly, Stu at the time was still alive, and he would be upstairs. So after the sessions, when I'd be done, I'd just go up and he'd sit there and visit, chat my ear off. So that was my, I was still living in Regina and just commuting back and forth to Calgary for the weekends for the training and the shows. But what an incredible time in my life. I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned the legendary dungeon, and that was perhaps immortalized forever in Wrestling with Shadows. Did you have any sort of experiences along those lines? I guess Stu would have been perhaps not downstairs mixing it up, or maybe he was at that time.
No, Stu was not downstairs mixing it up. It was with Bruce. But yeah, he had a number of drills. It was always just like every other sport. You got to go through the fundamentals. So there were a number of drills that were just basically going through fundamentals. But at the end of the class, there was always conditioning. And there was this one drill that I absolutely hated. And when I was Louisville, I told my buddy Chris Cage, and he would laugh at me every time I would tell him that I just hated it. Bruce would make you lock up, and he would just call what you would have to take for a bump. He would say, hip toss, body slam, drop kick, reverse hip toss, and you just keep going and going. And it's like I said, if you blew up like after 15 seconds and you think, oh, I'll just pace myself and I'll last it and I won't blow up. Well, he'll just wait. He'll go 20 seconds and 25 and then 30. So eventually until he gets you to being gassed and blown up all the time. So that was the toughest part. And then of course, thinking about it, there wasn't, you're just in a room, like you're not bouncing off the ropes. You're running to the wall and touching the wall and coming back. And there's a low ceiling, and it's not the ring has more give. A professional wrestling ring has more give, especially when you're 16, 18, 20 feet. It's got a lot of area. So when you bump in the middle, it's got some give. Whereas when you're in a small room with just gym mats, there's not any give at all, really. So it was really a matter of conditioning and toughening you up, or whether or not you really had it to make it in the business. Because I bet you there were people that didn't even make it into the ring after those sessions.
Mm-hmm. No doubt. Did you ever have any? I wanted to say training, but any sort of guest appearances in terms of your training early on with Bret Hart, or any other notable interactions with Bret?
Not with Brett so much, but Davey. Davey was there when I got there the first when I first went down to Stampede Wrestling, and he was just making his return to the WWE at that time, and he was wearing one of the belts. I can't remember if it was Intercontinental or the European, but he had just made his return and he was getting the big push. And he was also running a program at Stampede Wrestling with Principal Richard Pound and myself and my old partner Morris Neephoos, Red Thunder. We got to go out, and Bruce kind of chose us to get the rub to go out with Davey. Well, when he was doing his interview, his promo at the end of the match, we got to stand behind him and get that association, the rub, just by being in the same screen as him at the same time. And definite mark out moment for me. Because I grew up huge on the Bulldogs and the Dynamite Kid. Always, yeah, but I'm not the only one. Like there's so many other athletes and wrestlers that are around nowadays that say, when I was a kid, I used to love watching Dynamite Kid. That's like 4 out of 5 people in the Western Canada.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, and shout out to Harry Smith, who recently was in our card on July the 15th in Smith Falls. He's at home recovering. I understand through talking to him that he's doing well, but what a talent and what a credit to his dad's legacy as well.
Absolutely, and I just wanted to acknowledge as well and hope he's doing okay. I actually had appendicitis before it ruptured, and I had to get it removed. So I do know a little bit about what that kind of pain is like, and it's like nothing else. So nothing but thoughts and prayers going out to Harry, and hope that he has a speedy recovery.
Absolutely. In 2004, you were part of OVW, that kind of golden era. Can you talk about your experience there? And I don't know if you got to catch the Netflix docu-series or not. That's getting a lot of attention and a lot of spotlight thrown on modern day OVW. But what was your particular experience like there? How that occurred?
So to start with the documentary, I will tell you, I started to watch a little bit of it, and there's a part where they scan the background and the camera shows the vision of what it would like to kind of walk down that one hallway in the background there at Danny Davis Arena, and I turned it off. I had to turn it off because it was late. And I was starting to feel the adrenaline and that motivation, and I was starting to think, and it was too late to have those, like we got to wind down. I'm an adult. I have an adult career, and I got to be at work at 8 a.m. and and I go to sleep. I get up quite early in the morning because I like to get to the gym early and all that before I get to the office. And that's no word of a lie. I started to watch it, and when I saw that, I felt the surge of adrenaline, and I knew, okay, I better hold off. So I waited, and I watched a little bit of it this weekend while I was doing some other homework, and it looks super interesting. It was good to see. It's advanced a little. It's changed a bit since I've been there, but by all means, like I said, just seeing it, kind of took me back to that spot where I was mentally, my motivations and those types of things, and just thinking back, wow, what a wrestling factory that was. Like my very first day that I went there, I showed up for my first day of classes, and it just happened to be when John Cena was there as a guest instructor. So that kind of added to me, like there's this little bit of awkwardness of being the new guy showing up anyways, and then you happen to be showing up on this special day when training is elevated, escalated, but it was good. I loved it. It got me right in there, and the boys used to laugh. Joy Matthews and Chris Cage used to laugh because I told them, and Tank Toland, I told them, when I first got down here and I had that workout with you guys, I thought, these guys are wrestling machines. How do they do this every day? And they said, well, it wasn't like that every single day, right? There's kind of an ebb and flow where sometimes there's super intense practices, and sometimes they're a little bit lower impact, or maybe they just do promos. But my very first day there was like just a super intense practice, and I thought, wow, what am I in for?
And you had a pretty high profile match on TV, OVW TV, against what a worker Nick Eugene Dinsmore was, and you faced him for the title. What was that experience like for you?
It was really awesome, actually, because to even get into a spot like that was because of the being endorsed by Jim Cornette. So I'm lucky that he had the confidence in me to put me in a position like that. And then I guess second of all, for lucky that Nick, being a contracted WWE performer that was just about getting ready to go up to WWE, to agree to get into the ring with an uncontracted performer and to put me over, and to give me the rub like that when I was basically a no name coming out of Saskatchewan, to be put into a main event like that, and it was really something else. There was a lot that went into that learning. First of all, to get to that match, I worked with. He worked as Muhammad Hassan, Mark Magnus, and that was the first time that I had any experience in working a TV match that had like multiple segments. So it was just kind of like there was so much more to it for me. And in fact, after that match with Mark Magnus, I'd got an envelope handed to me the next day. By the ref. He came up to me and he said, "This is for you, Chief." And I opened it up as it was a letter from a memo from Jim Cornette, and it was to me and Mark Magnus, and he was asking us to report to the arena, the training center, on a Saturday. Because he wasn't happy with the match and he wanted to show us why. So, wow. Yeah. And so first of all, to be a non-contracted performer, and for Jimmy to care enough to come in on his day off, like he, as you know about Jimmy, like sometimes you don't think he likes wrestling, sometimes you think he hates it.
The modern version, yeah,
right. But for him to take his own personal time on the weekend, with a limited personal time as it is, to come down on a weekend, on a Saturday morning, to go over that match and really break it down frame by frame and tell us all that. And it was a whole bunch of tiny little things that the uneducated indie wrestler might not ever pick up if you never get to pick the brain or the minds of those types of workers with the knowledge of a Jim Cornette or a Danny Davis or a Nick Dinsmore. So yeah, really an incredible experience. That whole time in Louisville was just really incredible for me. So just being a part of that and getting to be under that learning tree with all of that talent was incredible. And you know what? It really helped me going into my career outside of the professional wrestling world, because you're seeing a lot of very, very strong personalities and celebrities, basically what it is, and you're learning how to kind of get over that. In the business, they call it marking out. Outside of the business, they might see, being starstruck, because, you have to start being able to get out of that headspace and to start focusing on being a performer and a professional. So yeah, definitely learned a lot down in Louisville.
Yeah, that's really interesting you say that. I always, working in the criminal justice system for decades now, I always comment that there's a lot of transferable skills, for lack of a better word, between pro wrestling and heavy duty government work. But you mentioned Mohammed Hassan, the man who would become that. What did you think of that character? Because here we are, almost 20 years since it was phased out, and it's still a controversial subject. Maybe more so with what's going on in the world right now. But did you have any impression of that after having worked with him at the early stage to what happened?
I was super excited for him when I saw, like, they looked really ominous, though, like the Titantron that they would show at first with the planes and stuff like that. Like, they looked really ominous. But because I knew him and I was his friend and I knew how hard he had worked to get there, and because I was right beside him, and it's kind of inspiring, because you're like, hey, if I happened to him, it could very well happen to me. So I do remember watching that and remembering how intense it was, but also being very very proud for him. I do know, of course, maybe he wasn't quite ready at that time to be in that position, but I mean, you can't go back in time. Like, he should be just happy that he got that opportunity anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, in that year, 2004, you started to get some shots for WWE syndicated television. I'm thinking Heat and Velocity. How did that come together? Was that Mr. Cornette again?
Yeah, that was basically through Jimmy and Dr. Tom, because Dr. Tom was rotating through Louisville on a regular basis, and I had lined up to get on WWE Raw here in Calgary, and that was basically through Dr. Tom and Jimmy, and I had done pretty good when I went out to some of those shows, and I opened the eyes of some of the agents where they had confidence in me that I was, competent and in a good hand, which of course is the curse of death in this business. But hey, it is what it is, and I wouldn't do anything different. I went back there and tried my best every time, and I was lucky that every time. Back then it was different. When you were booked as an extra, like I got a match most of the time. So when I would go to a WWE match, I ended up wrestling either a dark match or on Velocity or on Heat. Whereas nowadays, I think there's a little bit more of a process to it, and I don't think there's as many opportunities to actually perform. I think it may be more of a kind of a screening exercises in terms of the recruitment process. But yeah, I was really lucky to be able to be able to be a part of the business during that time.
Did you have any encounters, notable or otherwise, with, of course, the ubiquitous at the time, maybe still now, chairman of the board, Vincent Kennedy McMahon?
Yeah, I met him a couple of times. Of course, like you're kind of schooled before ahead of time that you're supposed to say hi to everybody as soon as you see him. But I guess most notably after my match with Tajiri at the Air Canada Centre in Toronto, I felt really good about that match. And then as soon as I walked through the curtain, Vince was right there. So I had 20 seconds, which is a pretty long time of face-to-face one-on-one conversation with Vince right there in gorilla position, and it was very encouraging. And after that, I was pretty close. If ever there was a moment where there was good time to put ink to paper, it was probably right around then.
What did he say to you? That's interesting that he was scrutinizing every match. Did he say anything to you that stands out to this day?
Well, here's the thing. I can't say that he came to gorilla position specifically to watch me. He just happened to be there. But at the same time, not everybody gets that that face-to-face time with Vince McMahon. So it was good, and I did feel good about it, because he knowing that he was asking the sorts of questions that that people would ask you if they're interested in potential opportunities. So I felt really good about that, and I felt really confident that day.
He must have been impressed because you had a great look and obviously are very fluid in the ring. Did you get the impression at that point in time that you said put ink to paper? Were you ever led to believe that they might bring you on to the main roster?
Yeah, a few times. Well, that was the goal on my end. Of course, you keep going, and hopefully one of these times you get signed. There was a couple of times when it seemed like I was really close. When you get that precise moment, spotlight in front of, like one time it was in front of the the writing team in Louisville, and then there's these these matches that you have in front of the agents. Another time it was an impromptu match with Sylvester Turkey when he was coming in for a tryout, and Arn just asked a couple, someone get in with him, so I got in, and I led him through a pretty simple, David Goliath match, and threw some really good chops that made some good noise, and that impressed him enough to put me in a match with him that night, and had a really good match with him. And that is one person that I will say in my career, if there was ever one person that I got the impression that could probably end my life with his bare hands, it's Sylvester Turkey. Just locking up before and walking stuff over, even you feel like, wow, this guy could kill me. Luckily, he was good to work with, though, and he knew that I shined him up pretty good, and he was pretty happy the next time when I ran into him at the next show. The next time around, he was pretty happy when I saw him.
Yeah, I had the opportunity a couple of months back to talk to his former partner Elijah Burke
Yeah.
and the Pope, and he said that's one man that was made it difficult to go from legit or MMA to pro wrestling because he was such a I think he used the term killer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And he was down in Elijah was down in OVW as well, and he went to the same tryout camp that I went to. And you know
Mhm.
what I remember thinking at that, because at the tryout camp I had already had indie experience, right? I've been around for a handful of years. Probably had a bunch of bad habits developed at that time already. But I remember thinking there was a couple of guys that came there with zero experience, and at the time I was kind of thinking, wow, how's these guys, how stupid can you be? But really thinking back, that's the approach that one should do, is you want to go to them right off the bat when you're as young as you'll ever be, and you have the least bad habits. Because if you're working
Mhm.
on the indies, you probably got some bad habits. Lots of
Mhm.
knee slappers out there.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. But for real though, you're working out there in the indies. You think that you're getting some good experience, but a lot of times you're developing the bad habits, which is what exactly what they're not looking for. At that professional level, AEW or WWE or Impact Wrestling, right?
Mhm. You mentioned that Arn. I'm taking that was Arn Anderson
Yeah.
wanted you to get into the ring. Now that must have been a real feather in your cap to get positive feedback from Arn. Did you have experience with any of the other WWE agents at the time?
Yeah, Regal. I had good feedback from Regal, as well as Fit Finley. So those to me, the fact that they would have, given me their good feedback, and they knew that I was dependable. So that's probably why I got chosen to do matches all the time. Um, yeah, so just getting close with them, and I got to the point where Dr. Tom, he had called me once to help book extras because he knew that I had a pretty good hand of the talent here in Canada and stuff like that. So
Cool. Now you worked with Maven from Tough Enough. Do you have any he has a popular YouTube
yeah.
channel now where he talks about a lot of in really legit straight up detail about some of his experiences. Do you have any recollection of working with him in terms of how he was treated in the locker room, given that tough enough bias, for lack of a better term?
When I was there, he was over. He had put in some time already, and he was pretty good. He was a good performer, and he was a good athlete. I just remember he was a pretty good stud athlete. So he started off with good the brings that he brought were really good, and of course he had the best training, if to start like that, to have the WWE training all along. So when you have that, you have the talent and the potential, and you put it in the proper environment, then they're going to get really good real fast. And
Mm,
I had really good matches with Maven, and I felt great because he respected me. Of course, he had less years of experience, but more experience at that level. So that counts, right? Um, but he had enough confidence in me to basically put the matches together or contribute more so, than just your regular extra that was coming in to do a squash job type thing. But I do remember thinking him that it was Maven and Sylvain Grenier. I remember thinking these guys were just incredible stud athletes that just learned really really fast, and were able to pick up, and I was really impressed by both of those fellows, by
mm.
Maven and Grenier, Sylvain.
Being a Stampede aficionado and whatnot, I had to ask you if you had any in that time frame that you were there. Did you have any interactions or experiences with Chris Benoit?
Not in Louisville, but I did have some interactions at my time at WWE. Um, Most notably, I think that I got the flashback right now was I was at the show the house show in Minneapolis when they discovered that Eddie Guerrero had passed away. And I was kind of trying to stay out of the way. And as a rookie, you're told, make sure you shake everyone's hand. So you're kind of on edge with this anxiety, but there's lots going on. So I'm just trying to stay out of the way, like literally trying to stay out of the way and manage my anxiety. And so I'm just, kind of going for a walk like I always do, just around the arena, just looking at whatever's there, killing time, right? Doing the hurry up and wait. And I didn't mean to, but I stumbled upon Chris Benoit he had a plate. He has his plate there from catering, and he just found himself a spot isolated. If you can imagine, walking around the whole arena, he just found himself isolated in the corner to sit. And I felt bad that I stumbled upon him because I knew he wanted to be alone. At the same time, I'm face to face with him, and I'm a rookie. And it's like, okay, what do I do? So I just immediately said hi and stuck out my hand. And I got to give it to him. He stood up. He stood up out of his chair, shook my hand, said hi, and went back. And that to me, that told me a lot, because there was nobody around. He really could have gave me the finger or ignored me or told me "F off, kid," or whatever, and he didn't. So, but like I say, when I stumbled upon where I was, I felt bad because I knew that he was looking to get some space, but everything worked out. He shook my hand, and I just got on my way. It was a pretty different day. It was really something else to experience, to be there. It was a little surreal. I can't imagine what some of the folks that that traveled with them, that would have had the time to get close with them. I can't imagine what it was like for them.
Mm-hmm. Now, you were around in a time frame as well that has kind of a reputation of being, having an alleged toxic environment in the locker room with bullying and mean spirited ribs from JBL, Taker, Benoit, etc. We've interviewed Tank Toland and his partner Chad, former partner in the Dicks, before, and especially Chad has some disturbing tales to tell. Were you privy to any of that sort of conduct, and if so, how did you navigate it?
I was not unfamiliar with the locker room culture, because I had grown up, playing hockey in Saskatchewan, and then had played football here in Regina. So I was definitely not unaccustomed to being in a locker room where lots of toxic things were said, toxic things were done. At the same time, learning how to I guess function and exist, and how to get along with people in that sort of an environment. And when I was there, I think I was pretty much ready for that kind of thing, just because of what I've been through in football, with the dressing room hazing. I guess it's not good. It's not good. The times have really changed. But at the same time, I guess I could say, if there was anything good about the locker room hazing, is that I had a really thick skin, and people, by the time I got there, it would have been pretty hard to really get to really rattle me. And I guess the main thing by that time is that you learn that the main thing is to not show that it rattles you anyways, because if you sell, then that just brings it on more, right? So it's just learning how to deal in that, learning how to function in that environment. Now, I've never been in a spot though where there's been this physical pressure where like a person, like, well, obviously I could get beat up by probably a lot of people at WWE, but you assume that people aren't really going around looking for that kind of thing unless you give them a reason to, right? So I think just having that background in a locker room culture, and learning how to function in that environment, as toxic as it may have been, totally prepared me. Hey, thanks, Morris. Totally prepared me for WWE, in the sense that I wasn't I wasn't scared, and I wasn't unsurprised when I could tell when little things, because people would test you by things they say or things they do right in front of you, and it's really all it is gauging your reaction. So how you react to that is really how it was. But I am glad that things have changed. Society has changed, the world has changed, and the days of locker room hazing are no longer. And when it does happen, people are aware that to make people aware of it, and to do things to stop it. So I do definitely feel for some of those people that might have been in that type of a situation, because I can just imagine if you step on the wrong toes with the wrong personality in the wrong situation, and there's the wrong balance of energies, it could be probably traumatizing, I would imagine. And I have
Mhm.
seen some of those interviews and heard some of those stories, and I could just it must have been tough.
Yeah, I think you also were very accurate in terms of if you sell for it, it's never going to end, and it's probably going to increase, much like regular intimidation and bullying in
That's
life.
right, absolutely.
I In my other role as executive vice president and promoter for Great North Wrestling, we have a big event coming up on November the 4th in Renfrew, Ontario, the Renfrew Reckoning, which will be headlined by our new Canadian champion, Magnum McLaren, putting his title on the line against Rene Dupree.
Holy
A
smack!
man, he's back. He's going great guns. Did you have any recollections of working with or just being around Rene?
Yeah. Reddy was younger than me, and I would say Reddy's my boy, but it's probably the other way around, because he helped me out when I got there, because he was already there at OVW, and I worked for a lot of the same people that we had common friends, so it's kind of like we knew of each other before we met, and then. We started hanging around, and he basically started giving me pointers on bodybuilding and how to diet, and what they're eating and what their daily routine looks like, and I really got to do that, and I had I'm forever indebted, because that knowledge combined with the effort to follow through and to continue my training, and that was really thankful to Rennie for the mentorship and the friendship during that time as well. So I learned a lot from him. He was a rookie, I guess, at the W. Like, he was a champion already, right? He was wearing the WWE tag team championship titles. But still he was a young man at the time, so he was still kind of learning in life and going through some of those trials and tribulations, and also forever indebted that while he was the tag team champion, I had my very first match in Louisville. I just showed up like that day or the day before, whatever it was. No one expects anything of you. No one expects you to be on the show. Then you're on the show. Then you're on the dark match with Rene Dupree, who's wearing a title. Then all of a sudden, everyone sees me pin him cleanly with a finisher, 1, 2, 3. Then all of a sudden, whoa, okay, something's on here. Jimmy's giving this guy a push. Why? Why is he getting a push? Who is this guy? And
Mm.
why did Rene put him over? so so really lucky. Rene really went out of his way to really feel welcome down there, to be a friend, and of course to put me over in my first match there.
Yeah, that's great. I'll make sure to mention that we had this discussion. I'm sure you'd appreciate that. In jumping ahead a couple of years in CWE in 2010, you had a tag match against the New Age Outlaws. What are your recollections of that event? Plus the fact that Billy Gunn has had, I don't know, he's 60 years old. He looks like $1,000,000, and he's still going strong in the ring. It's incredible, isn't it?
Absolutely, it's inspiring for myself as being 50 years old. It's good to see guys that are older, that are managing, to stay in shape and to stay performing and on top of the business. And going back to 2010, I certainly got to work with a lot of incredibly talented people, and on that tour we worked a tag match against the New Age Outlaws. And of course, for someone that grew up during the Attitude Era. Well, I didn't grow up during the Attitude Era, but I mean, that was like so. I was such a fan, such a mark during that Attitude Era, that to be in the ring with Road Dogg and Billy Gunn, it was something. It was really great. Always something to learn from whenever I got in the ring with veterans like that. So it was a really good experience.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of veterans, in 2012, you had some tag matches with and then worked against, according to my research, Tatanka. What were your thoughts, given the fact that that must have been someone that you were a fan of growing up, and the fact that he always wore his First Nations heritage right out there proudly, much like yourself.
Brian Gewirtz, one of the writers for WWE, a former WWE writer, he was the one that actually had an idea, a concept of potentially doing some type of a storyline with myself and Tatanka. So
wow.
that was around the time when Tatanka made the surprise return at a Royal Rumble, I believe, after a long absence. And when I saw him make that, when I saw it, they introduced him and he came out. When I saw that, I thought, hey man, here's my opportunity. But looking back, nothing ended up happening of it, and that's okay. But it really would have been something great to follow through with that. It was really cool to get to him on the independent scene. I got to wrestle with him in a tag match here in my home community of Lebret, Star Blanket First Nation. So that is really awesome. People, I got to have the pictures, and people loved it because, of course, when I was younger and I had the long hair, a lot of people would of course right away they would compare me to Tatanka. So it was really good to be able to get to meet him and have those matches with him. In fact, in RCW, we got to have a singles match. And we had place a number of years ago as well. So that was pretty awesome. And I was really impressed with his level of conditioning. He's at his age, he's still in really good shape. He can still go. And here's the most incredible thing about Tatanka is that the man has never had an injury. Stuff like that. But ask him if he's ever, torn a bicep or had a knee, ligament injury or anything like that. Nothing. So just one of those. He just tough as nails, good living, and living a good lifestyle, and he's showing it for sure.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any more information as to what this angle was or storyline was going to be? Would it have been a passing of the torch type of deal, or?
Well, that's what I envisioned it. In my mind, when it was pitched, that's exactly what it was. This passing of the torch, and maybe the potential to turn it around. In my mind, there was always the angle where they pass on the headdress, and usually he would attack both of the baby faces and rip up the headdress. And I thought it would be really cool if it was done the other way, where the mentor tried to give the headdress, and then the mentee rips it up and attacks the mentor. So I thought that would have been cool. Whether or not that was in the cards, I don't know, because it just never really got to that. It never got there. There's ideas get tossed around, and you never know. It could be someone as influential as Brian Gewirtz, and it might not get off the ground. So that's how that went.
Well, what could have been. Two-part question for you here. Probably need a sip of water for this. It'll be one of my notoriously long-winded ones. But as a First Nations wrestler, did you feel any extra pressure to be a positive role model? And the second part of that being, in Canada, we're as a country trying to come to grips with truth and reconciliation and healing of communities, and trying to make the First Nations communities in Canada whole again. And I talked to Des from Totally Arctic Wrestling, and he feels that
Des is awesome. I did the Northern Tour with Des. Sorry to interrupt you.
Absolutely. I would recommend everybody check out that interview on the Hannibal TV. But he feels there's a strong role in terms of that truth and reconciliation, that healing that wrestling shows can play in community. So I'd be interested in your thoughts on both those issues.
Absolutely. I think that, well, first of all, even if you just look at wrestling, like inside wrestling, the industry, it's always been a model of diversity, because you have one Russian, one Iranian, one Indian, one big guy, one small guy. So it's always been inclusion. And when you talk about truth and reconciliation, I think that wrestling can play a pretty big part in that, because we're free to use imagery and storylines and whatever we want to tell whatever story that we want. And I think that the old storylines probably are kind of passe. And that was my whole thing when I got into the business. I wanted, I was 100% sure that I needed to have that positive image outside of the ring, like as an individual. But I wanted to do something different with the character or the gimmick, so to speak, inside of the ring. So sometimes the things that you do in character poke fun or maybe seem to enrage or inflame some of those differences, but really when you're bringing them out and commenting them on them like that, that can help make fun of them and help heal some of these issues, so that we can see how absurd it is for people to be at odds simply because they have different backgrounds.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, when you were developing your character per se, there were, examples of portrayals of First Nations folks by non-First Nations folks, and I think back to, not that it was necessarily a negative portrayal, but the Italian Scarpa who played Jay Strongbow. Yeah. How did you feel about that then, and now that you've been in the business and cut your own path as a legit First Nations person?
Well, there's two aspects. On one end, I loved it. I used to cheer for Sunji Takano at Sunny Two Rivers because they called him Sunny Two Rivers, and we kind of knew. We would go up to him and try to talk to him, and we could see that maybe he wasn't, but we wanted to believe it. Like, we wanted to believe in Santa Claus, right? So I did want to believe in the. Sorry, can you reword the gimmick there? Sorry, or reword the question, sir.
Just your thoughts on when you were younger, growing up, the non-Indigenous person portraying an Indigenous character compared to now, and what your thoughts are on the subject. Do you find it to be inflammatory, disrespectful, or that sort of thing?
It is now, yeah, it kind of is now. There's a big concept now of the pretendian, because there are a number of issues or instances in current events where people assume an identity that isn't even theirs, kind of like a wrestler would, and use it to take advantage of opportunities that are set aside for other people that may have faced challenges. So I think in terms of the real world, the pretendian is definitely a huge issue, and now it's starting to make more of a difference. Where I don't even know if anyone would they used to always hire non-Indigenous actors to play Indigenous parts. I'm not even sure if that how if that's going to happen nowadays, because you're seeing a lot more Indigenous actors and performers from all backgrounds getting involved. So, being legitimate and authentic is definitely is definitely something that we have to watch for, because too many times in the past, people have taken advantage of the identity, and it doesn't do anything good, doesn't do anything positive, because people that may be naysayers to some of these initiatives will say, well, look, see, we told you this is exactly what's going to happen. People are just going to take advantage of these things, and it's too bad when that happens.
Yeah, I could agree with you more to go into that issue, but that's beyond the scope of this particular broadcast. But
Yeah, there are like episodes and documentaries about that going on right now. Huge issue in society right now.
A fan on social media actually sent me a question to ask you about your former tag partner, Don Cyrus Callis, and the recent, he went in the last 5 years, 6 years, it seems, from being out of the business, then having a podcast with Storm, doing the New Japan commentary, and now being quite a prominent fixture in a managerial role in AEW. What are your thoughts on his latter career?
Yeah, he made the transition from professional wrestling into the public service at some point. Like he was working as a government, he's a bureaucrat of some sort. I believe he was at a high level senior management someplace. But it was really good to see him get back into the wrestling business. And I think that as a person, develops in other careers, that you think back to wrestling, and there's a lot of things that you learn that you can apply to wrestling to open up new doors. And it's good to see Don back involved. Of course, when I was getting involved in the business, Don was also another one of those trailblazers that we would look up to, because he was just doing the Tony Condello winter road tours and the IWA TV tapings, and he's on WWE now. So we could all our, and Don was one of them. He was always really good to me. He somewhat of a mentor around to the business when it was like really extreme, like around that ECW. When he was working for ECW, and he had a booking style into Winnipeg, and I got a chance to work as a heel under him, and that was when I really embraced. That's when I really embraced this whole Indigenous gimmick, this identity, this as a heel, and it was through my working with Don and him providing that mentorship and that advice and that space for like that confidence to go. He told me before we went out there, he said, "Look, kid, this is a pretty rough area of town, and whether you go out there." They're trying to get them to cheer you or boo you. They're probably going to boo you. There's going to be a lot of going to boo you anyways. Might as well beat them to it. And he made a point. The light turned on right there, and it was like got nothing to lose. And I just went out there and opened up, and it was really empowering. It's super empowering. Let me tell you about that. As it's you can. As a minority sitting, the only Indigenous person in this entire venue, and there's just a ton of heat going on. This nuclear heat where everybody's screaming, freaking out. The people are throwing things at the ring, and almost riot from this promo. And at the same time, you feel this power. You feel this power on the inside, and I don't know what it is. Maybe you're crazy, because really, if the whole building decided to turn on you and attack you, they could probably kill you. but for whatever it is, there's this sort of magic, or there's just it just really felt like I was totally in the zone, and really felt powerful. Really felt the power in that moment of being able to hear all of these toxic, terrible things, the worst racial slurs ever being thrown at me, and me not even caring and saying stuff that would piss them off, and to make them say this stuff. And it was getting pretty bad, but it was it would have been a tough situation for a person that went there to watch us, and maybe type of thing. But for a person, given the pep talk, the inspirational talk that I had before we went there, to feel that it was something else. I sure learned a lot that night.
Mm-hmm. Now, you had a very lengthy in-ring career, in terms of being active. What toll that take on your body, and how are you dealing with that now that you have those years behind you? Did you work a style that you found was overly exacerbating your punishment?
I was lucky to learn how to work when I was in OVW. So Rip Rogers, taught us that you can't just go out there and do every bump that you do. Just and generally guys do that because they're only wrestling once a month or wherever it is. You have to get to the point where your body could take it if you're wrestling, 4 or 5 times a week. So I was lucky to learn that style through Rip Rogers and Jim Cornette, that Southern style, which is easier on the body. It's about telling a story. It's about engaging the audience. And saving your bumps, because I don't know if you ever heard of it, but you would have heard of the concept of a bump card. It runs out. It definitely runs out, and I know, like, I can feel that I'm close to the end, because just when you wake up every day, you like where you're starting from, that first step when you get out of bed, that follows with you, follows you for years, for the rest of your life. And it takes me a while. It takes me a good 45 minutes of drinking coffee and reading Facebook or whatever it is, and till I finally start to limber up a bit and move around. Then I like to get to the gym so I can get my body moving. But definitely the body has felt it, and I can only imagine what the workers that use a different style like that haven't been so conservative with the amount, or so with the amount of bumps that they take. I can only imagine what it would be like. And the one that kind of I never ever imagined, like you always think, oh, maybe I'll have a sore back, maybe I'll have a sore neck, and I do have sore back and I have a sore neck, but the one that you don't really think about is the hips, like that. Yeah, I do have so a little bit of pain in the hips, which causes a little bit of issues with mobility and some pain, but pretty much everybody is, you got to look after your body through stretching and proper diet and proper exercise and rest and all that. So it's just a matter of staying on a good regime and staying consistent with that, doing my best to stay limber.
In terms of your contacts on social media, and do you have any appearances or anything? You have some merch, I guess. Anything that you'd like to plug so that the fans could check it out?
Yeah, okay. So I guess I promote everything through either my Instagram, just at Wavell Star, or Facebook as well, just my personal profile. Want to throw in a plug for the 306 skate shop here in Regina, Saskatchewan, who has developed a lot of my Wavell Star merchandise. I've got T-shirts, I've got hats, and we sell them through Instagram, through my Facebook, as well as directly through the 306 shop. As far as appearances go, I don't have a lot right now, but I am looking forward to booking some more. I've been getting more involved on the promoting end over the past year. So currently just lining up the next show. We're planning a show just outside of Saskatoon in a First Nations community coming up here in November. So I'm doing a number of those, and those are a little different. Those aren't your typical, big city wrestling show that you'll see on a Friday night. I'm going out there and I'm trying to deliver positive role model messages to the youth of the community and to everybody within the Indigenous community, the importance of things like sports, culture, education, years, those types of things, because there's more to life. There's more to life than wrestling, and but I do. We use this medium, this beautiful art, that people in see. So by all means, if anybody wants to bring one of our awesome live pro wrestling shows to your Indigenous community, we will come out there. We'll talk to the kids to encourage positive youth role model messages. All the young people and old people will enjoy it, and we'll go from there.
Thank you for watching the Hannibal TV. Please like this video if you enjoyed it, and click the subscribe button to not miss any of our latest shoot interviews, match videos, or news updates. Follow us on Twitter